Good morning. This is Sherrie. My donor name is Xiǎnxǐng. And today I'm going to talk about diligence and the 8 worldly concerns. These are both things I talked about before, but I was not really happy with my talks. And when Master Jiru gave his wonderful talk on diligence a few weeks ago, it gave me an idea for how to talk about these things together again. And I think maybe do better than I did before, I hope. So Master Jiru talked about some very advanced things. I'm going to try to make it more basic. So I know someone who started college recently. And this person came to me saying, I don't think I'm smart enough to be in college. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, I'm studying all the time. I'm studying, I'm doing my homework, I'm doing it all the time, I'm doing it every day. And I see all these other people around me going to the club all the time. They're going every day. I don't have time to do that. I must be stupid. I must not be able to do this. And I said, well, wait a minute. You don't know what those other people are doing. You know, maybe they have easier classes than you. You have some pretty tough classes. Maybe they're flunking. You don't know what's going on there. So just keep doing what you need to do. And in a few weeks, you can reconsider the situation. So in a few weeks, she came to me and said, look at my test scores. And I said, okay, show me. And she had like 95, 98, 99. They were all quite good. She got A's on almost everything and high A's. And then she said, look at this. Half the class is flunking because on their blackboard, their bulletin board, they can see how the whole class is doing. I said, well, now you know why you are there studying every day and they are out clubbing. They are not doing their homework or studying for the exams. It's pretty simple, really. But we see this kind of thing a lot. If you know what you need to work on and you just do it, that's the biggest part of life, just doing what we intend to do. So we all start off with good intentions. I don't think that the people who are clubbing and flunking thought, I'm going to go to college so that I can club all the time and flunk my classes. That's not how they started off. They thought, I want to get to a good school. I want to get a good degree. I want to get a good job so I can make enough money to take care of myself, to help my family. I want to have a job where I'm helping others and doing good things. But instead, they're falling away from that. So why are they doing that? Distractions arise. Some of them are little distractions and some of them are really big distractions that are hard to deal with. But these distractions arise, and there are so many of them, and they take us away from what we intended to do. So these attachments and aversions that we have, these are the distractions that we have. It calls our distractions. And they cause suffering in the long run. The person who went clubbing probably felt pretty good when they were at the club and dancing and hearing music they liked, but then they saw their grade and they didn't feel so good anymore. Thought, oh, I have to work better now. But some of them will go right back to the club or playing video games or just hanging out, whatever they're doing, because they keep getting distracted. And it's our attachments and aversions that distract us this way. One of the things we worry about are happiness and suffering. We want to be happy and we don't want to suffer. And sometimes it seems, well, if I sit down to do this homework, I'm going to suffer because it's difficult. So just today, I want to be happy right now. I'll go to the club. Or maybe we have an intention to meditate every morning for 10 minutes before we go to work. And when we're laying there in bed, thinking about getting up and our bed feels so cozy, we think, if I hit the snooze button for 10 more minutes, that would be really nice. So we do that, and we miss the 10-minute window we had to meditate. We go for the thing that feels more pleasant or makes us happy right in the minute, right now. Even though later on, it may bring us some suffering. Later on, I have an F. Or later on, I'm not as calm as I would be if I had meditated for 10 minutes this morning. I slept in extra, so now I'm drowsy, I'm sleepy. I should have meditated. But happiness and pleasure seem like a really good thing in the moment. Avoiding suffering and pain seems like a really good thing in the moment, so that they make us leave behind our intentions. Another thing that can distract us from our intentions is hoping for gain and fearing that we will lose something. Gain, of course, we want things that we want. Loss can be that we lose something that we wanted, but it could also be that we get something we didn't want. So maybe we are afraid of missing out on a good time at the club, so we go to the club. Maybe I see a little money available in the till, and I think, wow, I could take that and they wouldn't notice, and I would have a little more money, so I take it. It's greed and this fear of losing out on things. It can make us drop our intentions and even make us break the law and do bad things. Another thing we worry about is praise. We hope to be praised by people, and we worry about being blamed. And of course, the students in school probably, they want to be praised by their teacher or their parents for getting a good grade. But in the moment, if your friend is saying, boy, you're boring, you should go to the club, that may seem more important in the moment. In fact, we can be so afraid of being blamed for doing badly on something that we don't even do it. We avoid it. Maybe some of the people not doing their homework are not doing it because they're so afraid they'll do badly, that it stops them from even doing it. So praise and blame can also take us away from our intentions. Two other things we worry about are fame and insignificance. We could also say fame and infamy. Fame is a big deal now. It doesn't seem like in the time of the Buddha they would have been so worried about fame, but apparently they were, because the Buddha talked about it. He wanted to have a good reputation and be well known. We like that because it strokes our ego. We don't want to be the person nobody pays attention to. Yeah, I hope people will watch my talk and think I did a good job. But if I start worrying about that, if you worry about it too much, it distracts you from what you're doing. You start thinking about that rather than just giving a good talk. So this again, worrying about what people will think of us and worrying about how we look in comparison to other people. Just measuring ourselves against other people means we worry about that instead of about what we're actually supposed to be doing. distracts us from what we intended to do. These are called the 8 worldly concerns. Also called the 8 worldly dharmas. And they have some other names. The 8 mundane concerns. These are things that narrow our point of view. Instead of seeing the big picture, what our intention was, I wanted to go to college to get a good job, and so on and so on. We get focused very narrowly on just this minute. What am I doing just this minute? I'm not having fun. I'm suffering from doing homework. I'd rather listen to music. So we do that instead. Instead of thinking about the job we're doing at work, we start thinking more about how much money we have, how much we want it. And our view narrows so much that we might think it's okay to steal things sometimes. Instead of seeing the big picture and remembering our intentions, we get narrowed on our hopes and fears, our attachments and our aversions. These attachments and aversions that we hope for or fear against, they trap us into this very narrow view so that we can't see the big picture. And remember, why did I want to do that? Oh yeah, I wanted to meditate for 10 minutes because it makes me a better person. I'm nicer to everyone during the day. I like that better. Everybody else likes that better. I said, all we can think about is just this moment. I would like to sleep a little more. Makes us focused on ourselves right now and in a very narrow way. So again, these 8 worldly concerns are hope for happiness or pleasure and fear for suffering or pain. They are hope for gain and fear of loss. They are hope for praise and fear of blame. They are hope for fame and fear of infamy or insignificance. Now, these translations are all based on a specific word in Pali or Sanskrit. Happiness is from sukha, suffering is from dukkha. And it's difficult to translate these things into English sometimes because we don't have one word that means exactly what that word meant in another language. And that's why you see these different translations sometimes. And that's why I'm sometimes giving multiple words to the meaning. So, how do these 8 worldly concerns match up with diligence? Diligence in Sanskrit and Pali is virya and virya. It's translated a lot of different ways because there's not one word in English that means virya. So translations include words like diligence, effort, enthusiasm, energy. Sometimes a definition is better than a translation. We can define virya as gladly and wholeheartedly engaging in wholesome activities. We could also define it as directing energies and efforts towards wholesome activities. A person wants to compete for a swim team at her school or at the Olympics. She has to practice very diligently and train. Just train her body, her mind. She has to develop skills that she'll need in the swimming pool, like diving and turning. And it takes a lot of effort to do these. You can't be distracted from them. As a householder who lives out in the world, someone who's not a monastic, we also need to apply this kind of diligence to things like having shelter, having food, getting education, taking care of our families, helping our friends and our neighbors. These are all things we can apply diligence to, and these are all good things to do as a householder. Actually have to earn money to do some of these things. And in Buddhist practice, we also need to apply these. We need diligence to remember to meditate in the morning, to actually do it. To not be distracted. We need diligence to practice compassion and loving kindness, because it's so easy to be distracted by a momentary attachment or aversion and think, gosh, I hate that person. I wish something bad would happen to them. Now you're only thinking that because of a temporary thing that happened that stirred up your own attachments and aversions. And that can distract you from your diligence towards being compassionate and kind to everyone. Diligence or virya shows up a lot in Buddhism. It's a wholesome mental factor. It's one of the 4 roots of spiritual power. It's one of the 5 spiritual faculties. It's one of the 5 powers. It's one of the 7 factors of awakening. So it shows up 4 different times in the 37 factors of enlightenment. It's very important, because without diligence, we can't accomplish anything we intend to do. We stray away from what we really want if we're not diligent about keeping to it. And those 8 worldly concern dimensions are the things that destroy our diligence, that stop it in its tracks, distract us from what we really want to do and what we really intend to do. There are some related terms in Buddhism that are sometimes translated as diligence or effort or energy, so I'm just going to mention them really briefly. Let you know that they're different things. Samapadana refers to the 4 right intentions. Sometimes they're called 4 right efforts or 4 right exertions. These are, if an unwholesome state of mind has arisen, stop it. Don't allow unwholesome states to arise. Begin wholesome states if they have not arisen yet, and sustain wholesome states that already exist. And related to these 4 right intentions is samadhyana. This is part of the Noble Eightfold Path. It's called right effort. With right effort, the wholesome state is unfailing. It's constantly generated. The unwholesome states never arise. Why? Because we are not distracted by the 8 worldly concerns if we have right effort. We guard our sense gates, our sensory organs, and the information they receive very carefully. We guard our mind carefully. We don't allow ourselves to be distracted by pleasure or pain, praise or blame, gain or loss, fame or insignificance. If these things are not able to distract us, then our effort's always right. It never stops. So these different kinds of effort and diligence all go together and interweave. My mundane practice, this is what we're all doing. We're not a Buddha yet, so our practice is mundane. It means we're worldly people. We need to have a job and earn money and buy a house. We have a good intention or goal, but stray from it due to hopes and fears that arise. This could be a little thing or it could be a big thing. Like I said, fear of failure or just wanting to not have to suffer right now. We may not even have a wholesome intention and instead are just trapped by our hopes and fears, bouncing from one thing to another. And don't really know what we're doing or why. Hopes and fears of the 8 worldly concerns distract us from our wholesome goal, turning our energy to other things. We can develop diligence toward our intention and use enthusiastic energy to stay on track. How do we do that? This is going to sound a little bit like a self-help motivational speaker, but we remember the benefits of the goal we have. It sounds like a modern way to think about it, but Buddhism has been talking about this for a long time, 25 centuries. If you're thinking, I don't want to meditate right now, think, well, if I do meditate, I'll be happy later. I won't get in a fight with anybody. I won't get angry. I'll feel better in the long run if I meditate, so I should meditate. I don't want to steal a tool from my neighbor because in the long run, that could be bad. I could go to prison. At the very least, my neighbors won't like me anymore. I won't be able to borrow anything from them anymore. We think about the outcome of our action. That helps us to make more wholesome choices. And to change our intentions, to make them more beneficial for us and for others. The 8 worldly concerns are the subject of the Loka Vipatti Sutta. So at the beginning of the sutta, it discusses the 8 worldly concerns and what they are. And then it explains ways that we can use to not fall prey to them. These conditions among human beings, happiness, pain, pleasure, gain, loss, praise, blame, all these things are inconstant, impermanent, subject to change. Knowing this, the wise person, mindful, ponders these changing conditions. Desirable things don't charm the mind. Undesirable ones bring no resistance. So if we think about these things as inconstant, impermanent, subject to change, we can remember not to let them affect us, to let go of them. My friend maybe didn't call me yesterday, and that made me feel kind of insignificant. Does that need to make me mad at him? No, it doesn't have to. I can remember this is an inconstant, impermanent thing. He'll probably call me later. Something came up and he couldn't call me. No big deal. I can let it go. I don't have to let fear or hate arise in my mind. I don't have to let greed arise in my mind. These inconstant, impermanent things. Transcendent practice is a practice of an arhat or a great bodhisattva or a Buddha. Knowing these things to be impermanent and inconstant, the wise person, mindful, ponders these changing conditions. Desirable things don't charm the mind. Undesirable ones bring no resistance. Is welcoming and rebelling are scattered, gone to their end, do not exist. Knowing the dustless, sorrowless state, he discerns rightly, has gone beyond becoming to the further shore. This is the person who is not charmed or afraid of the 8 worldly concerns. They have no impact on his mind. He does not let them grab hold of his mind. As a result, he is free from them. He can see the big picture. He can remember his intentions. He can remember to behave the way he really wants to behave. To do good for others, to do no harm. I'll just speak briefly about the Bodhisattva path in particular, because I'm running out of time. This can help explain how we develop diligence. When a bodhisattva is practicing, there comes a point when he enters what are known as the bhumis, and this is very advanced practice. In the first bhumi, a bodhisattva perfects his generosity. They perfect their generosity by overcoming dualism. They stop seeing others as different from them. They stop comparing others. They stop thinking, am I better than this person? Is this person better than me? They stop worrying about these things because they see all beings as equal and the same as them. This makes it possible for them to be generous, not only with physical things, but even with their mind and their emotions. As a result, they are free from worrying about things like praise and blame or feminine significance, because it does not matter to them anymore. After perfecting that, the Bodhisattva perfects ethics and discipline. These are Shila. Once you do not worry about who has more than you or who has less than you, or am I better or worse, it's easier to be disciplined, to have ethics, to not worry about gain and loss, because there's no more comparison. And the Bodhisattva perfects patience. Sometimes this is translated as forbearance, because they can bear with anything that happens. It will not distract them. It will not stop them. Bad things happen, the Bodhisattva knows this is just impermanence. Good things happen, the Bodhisattva knows this is just impermanence too. Everything comes and goes. They're not caught up in anything that happens. It's a result of these things. Not comparing himself to others, overcoming greed, having forbearance with difficulties that arise, and also with good things that arise, not getting carried away by anything. The Bodhisattva can then perfect diligence. And then he goes on to perfect other things, which we don't need to talk about today. No. We're not bodhisattvas on the bhumi path yet, but we can bear this in mind. To remember to have a generous mind, to keep ethics in mind, to not constantly compare ourselves to others. And to remember that anything that happens is impermanent and will not always stay this way. These things we can overcome, the 8 worldly concerns, and not let them trap us. And we have the freedom to release our energy in a diligent way and to pursue our intentions in a good way, in a wholesome way, without distractions. Now let's remember some of our own intentions. May all beings know happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings know the great joy that is free from suffering. And may all beings dwell in the equanimity that is free from attachment, aversion, and ignorance.